Story 1, Motel Incident. This happened last fall when I was staying in a small town in northern Pennsylvania for work. I do commercial refrigeration repair, and at the time I was driving to different grocery stores and restaurants in smaller towns. Because our company was short on people, the town I was sent to was the kind of place where everything shut down early and there were more empty buildings than open ones. I was supposed to be there for 3 nights while I worked on the walk-in freezers at an older, family-owned supermarket. My company booked me a motel on the edge of town because it was the only place nearby with vacancy. I got there a little after 7 p.m. on a Thursday. The motel was one of those single-floor places where all the room doors faced the parking lot. It had maybe 12 rooms total and only a few cars in the lot. The woman at the desk warned me not to open the door for anyone at night. That same night, I noticed a man sitting in a dark green pickup truck nearby. He didn't look at me normally, just sat still, hands on the wheel. Later that night, I heard footsteps outside my room. They stopped at my door twice, then came knocking. When I checked, no one was there. Around midnight, I heard metal scraping near the door. I looked through the peephole and saw someone crouching just below my view. I called the office. They said it was probably nothing. At around 5 a.m., I woke up to my truck alarm. A man was standing at my truck, then suddenly looked straight at my room before walking away. Police came but found nothing. The next night, things got worse. The same truck returned. Later, someone tapped on my window, slowly dragged something across the glass, and then tried opening my bathroom window. I called 911 again. At the same time, someone entered the empty room next to mine. I could hear movement through the wall. Then there were knocks at my door again, and pressure on the bathroom window like someone trying to force it open. Police arrived just in time. Whoever it was ran. They later found signs that multiple people had been trying to break in. Not just my room, but the room next door and my truck. Before leaving, I found a piece of paper under the bed. It had my room number and my truck plate written on it. That meant I wasn't chosen randomly. I left immediately that night and never went back. It all began in October 2025, during one of those lonely stretches of life where everything feels gray and repetitive. I had recently broken up with someone I thought I'd be with forever, and my days had turned into a blur of work, scrolling through social media and trying to ignore the hollow feeling in my chest. My friends had been urging me to get out there to meet someone new, but I wasn't ready for the kind of heartbreak I feared would inevitably follow. Still, after endless teasing from them, I finally gave in. That's how I ended up downloading Tinder. At first, it was just mindless swiping. Faces blurred into one another, smiles, perfectly styled hair, and staged backgrounds that screamed of perfection. I didn't expect much. Then one evening, I matched with a guy named Killian. His profile was simple. A few candid photos, a quote about adventure, and a smile that somehow seemed genuine. I shrugged it off and started chatting casually. The conversation started normally. Funny jokes, small talk about favorite shows, music, and random memes. But as the days passed, I realized that I was actually looking forward to his messages. They had a way of brightening the dullest parts of my day. Then things shifted. Slowly, subtly at first, he started asking more personal questions. Where exactly do you live? Who are you hanging out with tonight? I laughed nervously, thinking he was just curious, maybe a little over-involved. But then he started sending messages like, "You're mine. If I can't have you, no one can." I froze the first time I read it. I wanted to laugh it off, but the words clung to me, icy and unsettling. We weren't even dating. How could someone be saying something like that to me? I told him it was too much, that we weren't even serious. But he would just brush it off and say, "You don't understand. I care about you more than anyone else could." Weeks passed. The tension grew. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart would jump. I started noticing strange patterns in his online activity. He would disappear for days, only to come back suddenly with long, obsessive messages about how he missed me or needed to see me. I should have blocked him immediately, but a weird mix of fear and curiosity kept me responding. Then one night it happened. My friend had given me a ride home after a late dinner. It was dark and the streets were unusually quiet. I walked the last block alone, my steps echoing against the cracked pavement. That's when I saw him, a shadow in the alleyway, a figure standing completely still, yet somehow radiating a sense of menace that made my stomach twist. He called my name. My blood ran cold. It was him. Before I could even react, he lunged forward, slamming me against the wall. His hands gripped my neck like iron, and I could feel the air being squeezed out of my lungs. "Who were you with tonight?" he demanded, his voice low, almost snarling. My mind went blank. I couldn't form words, my vision blurred at the edges. I truly thought this was the end. And then he stopped, abruptly, almost as if someone had pulled a cord and yanked him back. He muttered something about catching a bus and bolted into the darkness. My legs collapsed beneath me and I gasped for air, the taste of blood and fear filling my mouth. I managed to call my friend, who immediately called the police. They arrived within minutes, their presence both comforting and terrifying. The officer looked at me gravely, explaining that my life had been in real danger. He handed me a small tracking alarm device, saying it was to alert them if I was ever in immediate danger again. But the terror didn't end there. A few days later, while walking to the grocery store, I sensed it. Footsteps, always just behind me. I would glance back only to see someone quickly ducking out of view. The police suspected it was someone connected to Killian, someone who had been keeping tabs on me. The thought of him sending others to watch me, to threaten me, consumed me. Sleep became a fragile illusion. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined him in the shadows, waiting, planning, ready to strike. I started changing my routines. Different routes to work, new locks on my doors, cameras installed at the entrance, friends always on standby to accompany me. But none of it erased the constant weight on my chest, the feeling of being hunted. Then one evening, I received a message on my phone. The screen lit up with a single, chilling line. "You can run, but you can't hide." It wasn't just fear anymore. It was panic. I felt trapped in my own life, my own home. Even talking to the police became exhausting. I knew they could only do so much. I confided in a friend about it, someone I trusted completely. They suggested moving, maybe leaving the city for a while. But even then I wondered, what if he found me? Killian wasn't just obsessive. He was dangerous. I realized I was living a nightmare I couldn't wake from, a horror that had nothing supernatural about it but felt just as terrifying. Over the following months, I lived cautiously, always scanning, always listening. Every unexpected knock on the door, every shadow in my peripheral vision, set my heart racing. Therapy helped me process some of the trauma, but the fear never truly left. Sometimes late at night when the house is silent, I feel eyes on me. I reach for my phone, instinctively checking for any notifications, any signs that someone might be near. It's a paranoia that has become part of me, a constant companion. Even now, years later, I feel like Killian could return at any moment. And though I am alive, I know that my sense of safety has been shattered forever. My name is Mike, and this happened last October during a crisp fall weekend. I had been itching for a solo camping trip, just me, the wilderness, and a chance to disconnect from everything. I decided to explore a remote trail in the Smoky Mountains, far from the crowded campsites and tourist paths. Before heading into the woods, I stopped at a small roadside diner. It smelled of coffee and fried food, and the dim lighting made the place feel cozy. But there was a man sitting near the counter who kept glancing at me. Finally, he called me over. "You planning to go into the mountains alone?" he asked, his voice low and serious. "Yeah, just a solo trip," I replied casually, trying not to seem intimidated. He shook his head. "Be careful. Not everyone out there is friendly. Some trails, they don't like visitors." I smiled awkwardly, brushing off his words. I had heard plenty of warnings about hiking alone, but I told myself I'd be fine. It was probably just some local trying to spook tourists. Later that day, I reached the trailhead. The path was narrow and winding, flanked by dense trees. The late afternoon sun filtered through the leaves, casting long shadows that danced with the wind. I hiked for hours, enjoying the solitude, the sound of leaves crunching underfoot, the distant call of birds. As evening approached, I found a small clearing and set up camp. I pitched my tent, stacked some firewood, and lit a small fire. The warmth and crackle of the flames made me feel safe, at least for the moment. Everything felt normal, until I heard it, a faint crunch of leaves behind me. I froze, straining to listen. My heart rate spiked. The footsteps stopped. I told myself it was just an animal, probably a deer or a raccoon. But deep down, a nagging fear settled in my chest. Then I saw him, a man standing between the trees, partially hidden in shadow, watching me. His eyes seemed fixed on me, unblinking. "Are you alone?" he asked, his voice calm but unnerving. I swallowed hard. Yeah. Some friends are coming later," I lied, hoping he would leave. He nodded slowly, turned, and walked away. I exhaled sharply, convincing myself it was over. But as night fell and darkness swallowed the forest, I realized he hadn't really left. From inside my tent, I heard the crunch of footsteps circling. They would come close, pause, fade away, then return. I could hear soft breathing, heavy and deliberate, just outside the thin fabric of the tent. My mind raced. Was it really just one person or more? I was paralyzed with fear, afraid to peek outside. Hours passed like this. Every crackle of leaves, every distant snap of a twig made me flinch. The wind through the trees sounded like whispers. I tried to convince myself it was all my imagination, but the fear was too real. Finally, when the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, I couldn't wait any longer. I packed my things quickly, my hands trembling. As I stepped out of the tent, I froze. The forest floor was littered with footprints. Not just one set. Multiple people had been moving around me all night. A sudden rustling in the underbrush, and then they ran. Not one, not two, but several figures sprinted away into the woods. I hadn't imagined it. This wasn't some trick of the night. Fear surged through me. I left immediately, hiking as fast as I could back to my car. My hands gripped the wheel tightly as I drove, eyes darting to every shadow along the roadside. Weeks later, I returned to the clearing to collect my gear. My tent, my firewood, even the small bag of supplies I had left behind. Everything was gone. It was as if the forest itself had swallowed it. I never discovered who or what had been there that night. Even now, when I hear footsteps behind me in quiet places, or a branch snap in the distance, I remember that night. Alone in the Smoky Mountains, I realized the wilderness can be more terrifying than any horror story. And sometimes, the real danger isn't supernatural. It's human.